Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adwukta.
This is Merps, and this begins week one of future Merps and Adulta, past, future. I don't know.
Pre-recorded. That's what
It
Twitch
is
chat would say.
pre-recorded, so if
But it's always pre-recorded if you're actually listening to this as a podcast.
that is true. But usually it is just pre-recorded by one day. But now it has been pre-recorded by basically weeks. So if something dramatic or something super exciting has happened within the world of Hearthstone or in the general world, like we get invaded by aliens, then this might seem a little bit out of place. that we're not, sort of.
What's more important, being invaded by aliens or Hearthstone Arena?
Well, we're assuming that aliens would, not infringe upon your ability to play the arena.
That's true.
In that case, we would have a segment like deep fried meta. Like, how do you combat the aliens in order to play Hearthstone Arena?
I'm sure that's their first concern. Shut off our entertainment.
I mean, you got to hit them where it hurts, right? And it would hurt, I think, our community a lot. I don't know. I don't know how aliens operate. That's not what we're going to talk about. But anyways, just know that for this week and next week, it will not be as topical to current events, if there are any current day events.
Okay, so I guess let's just get started then. Today we're going to talk about, or the day a week and a half from now, we're going to talk about deep fried meta, where we deep fry the meta, and we're moving. This is what always happens with the new expansion, right? Expansion comes out, we talk about what's happening with the meta, how it changes, where the classes are, what the cards are, and how to get better, and then we switch over to more general arena-y kind of topics about the fundamentals of arena, how to improve arena gameplay, just topics about advanced arena gameplay, and then the hype for the next expansion kicks in and we start getting previews for the next expansion and the cycle starts over. So we're in the middle zone right now, which is why it's actually a really good time for us to pre-record some Lightforges, so we don't have to talk about like the stuff that's happening and we can focus in on what matters, which is how to play the arena good. And this is how you play the arena good. One of the topics we get asked about a lot, we haven't done a Lightforge on it yet, is advanced mulligans. We have an episode back, way back. It's been a while, but we did talk about mulligans, and it may be nice if you want to go back and rewatch an episode or re-listen to an episode, download, I don't know what they call it. We did simple mulligans in...
Hello. Are you still there, sir?
Hi, I'm still here. Did we not ever do simple mulligans? We definitely did simple mulligans.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Oh, 27. The 27th Lightforge, we did simple mulligans. And what simple mulligans are is mulliganing without a coin, which makes it really kind of easy. And we went a little bit into some of the odds of what you're going to get, how to mulligan your cards away, and it wasn't a terribly long discussion, I think, because there's not that much. It was just debating whether you hold things for value or you want curve, right? Well, now we're going to talk about how to mulligan with a coin, and once again, we're going to avoid rogue, because rogue is a topic in and of itself when it comes to coin usage, and when it comes to mulligans for that matter. But we'll talk about how to mulligan with a coin. And I just want to start off with a little bit of math here, because that's what we're known for, our excellent mathematical abilities, but it really helps guide the discussion. So let's say you have 6 2-drops and you have a mulligan hand, and you're just going to kind of go for it, right? Like, you have a hand, you will mulligan everything away for 2-drops if you don't get it, and you will mulligan everything away if you don't get it, and then you're hoping to get 2-2-drops so you can coin out the 2s. These are your odds to actually get 2-2-drops if you're just going for it, which is if you have 6 of them, it's 74% chance. If you have 5 2-drops, it's 62% chance. This is just this is math I pulled from the internet. So you can trust them because I didn't do it myself. And it's pretty good, right? Like it's not abysmal. And on the other hand, if you already have a 2-drop in your hand and you're mulliganing for your next 2-drop, like you're mulliganing the rest of your cards away and you're going to get your 2-drops back. In that case, it is a 83% chance with 6 2-drops that you will hit your second 2-drop, and 75% chance if you have 5 2-drops. So, pretty good odds. Pretty good odds.
Not bad. Good information to know. I did not know this. I just believe in the heart of the cards and toss them back and see what happens.
So that's where, and that's the most popular thing to do, right? Like, what do you do with a coin? Maybe we should have started there. You try to do 2, 2, 3, 4, where you coin out the 2. You could do 1, 3, 3, 4, or you can do 1, 2, 4, 4. Those are your basic options. If you're holding the coin longer than that, it really becomes less meaningful, because the earlier you start using the coin, the more relative tempo boost you get. Right? If you use it on turn 2, you have 3 mana. That's 50% more mana. If you use it on turn 9, you have 10 mana. That's 11% more mana. That's not making as big of a difference tempo-wise as 50% more mana.
Yep, definitely. And when you get into the later turns, we talk about this quite often as well. The drops become weird, right? The drops become more sort of like synergistic cards or big conditional cards, or like the stat distributions get very strange. So if you use the coin at the very beginning of the game, you know you're getting that advantage. And because during that time, there's not really any punishment for a small sort of but very effective hard removal. So part of the reason that you really want to use the coin in the early game as well.
Yeah. So what are the and so generally speaking, you want to use it in your early game, especially if you have more 2-drops and you're going to curve out. I don't think that's very controversial. But what happens, and here are the tricky scenarios, right? Like, what happens if you have a really good 4-drop in your hand already, and you don't have 2s yet, but you have the coin? What do you do with that? Do you hold the 4-drop? Do you toss, like, so let's say the rest of the cards are not even like a consideration. You're just going to toss them anyway. They're all like 8-drops or something. But you do have a 4-drop. It's a Yeti or a Water Elemental, and you want to keep it. It's a really good card. Can you keep it?
All right. So once again, we have to begin the conversation by establishing like this is going to be deck dependent, right? This is going to be deck dependent, and it will not be sort of a situation or like a one-size-fits-all solution. Now, let's break it down in what I think are the 2 big factors that you want to look for. So if you're thinking about keeping that 4-drop, if it's like a piloted shredder or a water elemental, as you say, I think there are 2 situations in which you could really think about. Number 1 is a situation in which you are pretty sure you're going to be able to like get a 2, and you're like, I have enough 4s that I could draw into them, right? Like, so you have enough 2s and you're like, okay, I have enough 4s that I could draw into it, so I can play 2 4 4. That's fine. Another situation is if you have like a good number of 2s and a good number of like 3s, for example, but you have like 2 4-drops, which sometimes happens as well. If you, I think, are so afraid that you are just not going to get a 4, and let's say the only 4s you have are like Ace Engine and a Piloted Shredder, and the other 4 mana, you have other 4 mana cards, but it's like a Hammer of Wrath or something, and you're just like, I can't rely on that. And in that case, you also want to look at your 2s again. 2s and 4s are really connected to each other, and then say, okay, I have a good chance of getting that 2 anyways. I have good 3s and a good number of them as well. I just don't have any 4s. I'm going to keep this 4.
Yeah. And in that case, you're keeping the 4 because if you're thinking about tempo and you want to tempo out and you miss your 4-drop, well, all of your tempo is gone. It only takes your opponent one, like think about this, right? If you curve out in the early going, you get like 2 more tempo on the board because you managed to put out a 2-drop. If you miss your 4-drop and you instead put out a 2-drop instead of a 4-drop, you've just lost all the tempo that you gained, right? Like, you're in no better position than you would be if you had missed the 2-drop. And missing a 2-drop is awful. It's like game losing. Well, it was game losing before. Now it's still really bad, but it's no longer quite game losing in this more generous meta when it comes to the board play. But still, you don't want to do that. So if you're making the evaluation that if I throw this 4-drop back out there, and when you throw a mulligan back, you don't draw it back. So here's one of the things with the mulligans that some people don't know is the cards you toss at back, you never get back on your mulligan. You can still draw it on the first card you draw of the game, but you don't get it back on the mulligan. They're not in the pool. So if you have only one 4-drop and you throw it away, you have very, very small % chance of actually getting it back, right? You draw 4 cards before your turn 4 out of the 26 cards. So that's 4 out of 26. That's your chances of actually curving out. So you hold that 4-drop because otherwise you're not going to curve out. Now, when it comes to the other reason that you might hold a 4-drop is maybe you're just trying to curve out 2/4/4, right? Maybe that's your goal. Maybe you're a slow deck. Maybe you're trying to stabilize on 4. You have a lot of 3/5s. You have some 2/6s. You have cards with low attack and high health, and you're okay with having your opponent get on the board a little bit. Maybe your cards have taunt, and you want to keep one of them. Your odds of actually getting a with 4 total 4-drops and 6 total 2-drops, your odds of actually getting a 2 and a 4 while keeping an existing 4 in your hand is barely over 50%. So that's why we don't recommend you do that generally without having the 2-drop in hand. On the other hand, if you have a 2-drop and a 4-drop in hand and you're keeping both of them and you're trying to go for 2/4/4, your odds spike up to 70-something%. It becomes, and of course in that case you also have the flexibility of getting a 3-drop and just playing 2, 3, 4 and saving your what do you call it? Your coin, or yes, what we're talking about here, or you're going to be able to get to coin out 2s and hope you hit the 3. So even without those scenarios, you're at over 70%. So it's very good if you have a 2 and a 4 to keep it if you're comfortable playing 2/4/4. Sometimes you're playing a temple deck and you're like, I'm not comfortable playing 2/4/4. My 4s are like Lost Tall Striders, right? They're not good when you play them late. They're better if you already have a board and then you play them. Or I need stuff on the board because I'm a snowball deck. I need to snowball immediately. And then you don't keep the 2 and the 4, even if you could, right? Even if you think, I'll be able to use the coin very mana efficiently if I keep it. But if you're just going for that late game kind of value oriented deck, keeping a 2 and a 4 is very good because the odds are very high that you will indeed curve out. And you also prevent the downside of not being able to do anything, right? Of drawing a bunch of 6s and 7s instead.
Yeah. When we talk about this, it really goes to show why historically the person going first has a percentage, a small percentage advantage over the person with the coin, right? Not even talking about the power, the power level of you going first versus having the coin. If you have the coin, you have all of this decision making to make, right? This is why we call it simple mulligan versus advanced mulligans. And during the simple mulligans, it really was how important is getting a 2, how important is getting a 3, and we talked about small percentages like that. Now you really, if you're talking about mulliganing with the coin, you are linking together turns. You have to link together turns. With simple mulligans, you really take the turns as they are. Here, you are pairing turns together, and you're really pairing 3 turns together, not just 2. So it really goes.
Which 3 turns? Which 3 turns?
Well, you're either pairing 2/4/4 or 1/3/3.
Right. So the turn you use the coin, the turn after you use the coin, are the 2 turns, and possibly the turn before you use the coin.
Right. So I'm tying all those together because the turn before you use the coin, you're still thinking is okay, I'm going to commit next turn to using the coin, right? And then you actually use the coin, and then afterwards, that is the post-coin follow-up. So yeah, I'm sort of linking those turns together, as in all 3 turns are impacted heavily by you having the coin.
Yep. So if you have the coin, you have the choice, right? Like, the choice is to get on the board before your opponent does, because you can coin out a 2-drop before your opponent can play a 2-drop. Or the choice is to take over the board at some point in the next couple of turns. Because if you coin out a 3-drop, it'll kill your opponent's 2-drop and have something left over. If you coin out a 4-drop, it'll kill your opponent's 3-drop or 2-drop and have something left over. But we talked about this in the coin episode of the Lightforge as well. What you want to use the coin to do is not just to curve out your mana, but to actually take over the board. That would be episode 11. Ooh, way back when in the Lightforge. We talked about coin usage. And so if the goal of the coin is to establish a presence on the board, it is the only turn you get to take before your opponent. Your opponent gets to take all other turns before you. So with that in mind, and looking at your card collection, you should first decide whether you can accomplish that goal. And if you can accomplish that goal, maybe save the coin for the 2/4/4. Otherwise, maybe go for a more aggressive mulligan, right? So we're talking about advanced mulligans as in what cards you should mulligan back, but it always plays into the discussion of how you use the coin to begin with. Okay, so let's move on from that into another thing, which we've generally discouraged doing this, but then you see us doing it fairly frequently, and so it's really deck dependent, right? And that's 1/3/3, or just 3/3 most likely. And it's bad because 3-drops are bad. And it's also bad because in order to pull that off consistently, to like hold a 3-drop in your hand in the beginning and expect to be able to coin out another 3, okay, so if you hold a 3 in your hand and you toss everything else away because you didn't have a 2 or a 4 or because you didn't have a 2, what you're getting back is that like slightly over 62% chance. That 74% chance to get a 2-drop back if you have just one 2-drop back at all. If you have 6 2-drops, and it drops to 62% if you only have 5 2-drops. Yes. No.
No. Yes.
No,
It's
no, okay.
between 0 and 100.
83, a little over 80% and a little over 70%. I'm getting my numbers mixed up. Okay, so if you have a 3-drop in your hand and you keep it, and you have a little over 80% chance to get a 2-drop in your back before you need to play your 2-drop, and a almost 75% chance if you have 5 2-drop. So that's totally like okay as far as the chances go, right, of holding a 3 when you have the coin. And that's because you get more cards, right? The coin card ones, you get an extra card and you play it on the turn as well. You're not trying to coin out the 2-drop, so you don't need it on the turn before to guarantee you have a 2-drop to play. So it's pretty generous if you hold a 3 to be able to play 2, 3, and then figure the rest of that out. But that's not really what you're going for. That's like a backup, right? Like, you don't want to not use the coin in your first 3 turns. That's kind of very slow. Instead, what you want to do is you want to coin out a 3 and then play another 3. And the chances of that happening are much, much lower generally because your deck is not going to have 6 3-drops. Or if it has 6 3-drops, you've done something wrong to begin with in drafting. What you want to have is normally we say like 4, at most 5 3-drops. And so in that case, to get 2 3-drops, if you have one already in hand, it's 75% with 5 3-drops and 65% with 4 3-drops. The numbers are a little skewed high. It's a little lower than those numbers, but that's about where it is. And that's okay, but you can already see that it's lower than getting 2 2-drops. The 2 2-drops numbers are over 80% and over 70%. This is now over 70%, over 60%, and it's just a function of you. Generally, we expect you to have less 3-drops in your deck, like for deck construction purposes. So if you do happen to have a deck that has like 6, 7 3-drops, fine, right? Like, yeah, you can be pretty guaranteed to coin out a 3 and play a 3 to follow up. If you don't, if you have a normal-ish kind of deck, it's just not a very high percentage to actually curve out. You would have a large chance where you would have to hold the coin for longer, and you don't want to get stuck doing that. Like, compare that with the 4-drop percentages, right? And you have the 4-drop percentages are even worse, of course, to get a 2 and a 4. But even at the 3-drop percentages, these are not very good percentages that you want to rely on, especially when your result is not good either, right? Like, you're still playing 2 threes.
Right. So we've been kind of trashing on like sort of 1-3-3, or rather pass 3-3. So like let's go to the flip side. Like, why would you still do it, right? Keeping a 3 or keeping 2 threes. So like, first of all,
well, if you don't have 2s, I think is the most obvious answer.
Right, exactly. If you don't have 2s, you would do it. Yeah. Also, and this is one consideration, which I don't think is present. It's one of the unique features for 3s as opposed to 4s. 4s, you don't really see this because it's just a little bit too far off. But sometimes I keep premium 3s because they are so good, and I'm like, even if I fall behind a little on 2, whether it's hero power or whatever, the 3s can help me stabilize. You're talking like I'm basically talking about premium 3s such as Scarlet Crusader or like Ogre Brute, right? And Spider Tank to some capacity as well. But 3s are still a spot in which you could say like, okay, my curve is decent, right? Like, yeah, I still have a chance to draw a 2, but like this 3 is so premium that I'm just gonna keep it because it. Even if I fall behind a little on the early turns, like a 4/4 Ogre Brute is going to help me catch up. So I think that's one consideration that you don't see that often with 4s, but I think is very prevalent for 3s, at least sort of in my.
Well, you see it with 4s too, right? Like, that's why like Senjins are good keeps, and especially now you have like a Bloodfoot Brave or something. I don't think you don't see it with 4s. I think you do see it with 4s.
I think it's a lot less. But like, that consideration is because that's. If you want to say that turn 2 is the start of the game, then that's 2 turns away, right? Like, the 3-drop is 1 turn away, and I feel a lot more confident being like, okay, I'm just going to...
You're more in control of what your opponents are doing because they have 1 less turn to do fancy stuff.
Right. And not saying that turn 3 is the start of everything fancy, but...
it's 1 more turn towards fanciness.
Right. I mean, it is 1 more turn in which they have mana to use, and there's like cards such as like Seal of Champions or something, right? There's stuff out there that can sort of ruin your day. But so that's definitely one thing that I want to point out, that consideration. And then afterwards, like when you keep a 3 is sort of like, how many 3s do you have in your deck, right? Like, exactly how many. If you have a lot of 2s, and this goes back to a previous example, but no 3s, you're like, well, okay, I could even if I get my 2/2 drops, that's great. I'll just play 2/2/3 and then hopefully draw 4. If I don't get it, then that's fine. I still have my 3s, so then I'll just play my 2, which I'm pretty certain I'm going to get because of the number of 2s I have in my deck. Play the 3, and then the coin just whenever, right? Like, whenever I feel like it. So I think those are the typical examples of when you keep the 3.
Wait, that's if you have a lot of 2-drops?
Well, if you have a good number of 2s, but you don't have any 3s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a good number of 3s, then like, once again we go back. If it's like an Ogre Brute, you might think about it, but at the same time, you're like, well, if I have the 2s, why not just go for the 2s? And I don't mind getting like, just some slightly more subpar 3.
Yeah, and keep in mind that stats the percentages that we're quoting you. They apply with the assumptions, right, of like 6 2-drop or 5 2-drop, and we're very explicit in terms of saying what the assumptions are. When your deck doesn't fit those assumptions, it skews everything, right? Like, if you only have 3 2-drops, you don't have a 74% chance to get 2 2s. You have a much lower percent chance. It's like 50-something. And same with 3s, right? Like, you can draw a 3 by turn 3 pretty consistently if you have 4 or 5 of them, but if you have 1 or 2 3s, you're not going to. And again, if you don't curve out on turn 3 and you do 2/2/3 and you actually go 2/2 hero power and then 4, you've just lost any tempo that you've gained from the coin. And so it was a pointless gamble, right, to like put cards out there. You haven't gotten the board because you were just going to lose it. So these are things that will definitely affect all the odds of curving out. And also, the type of 3-drop or 4-drop that you're keeping is also very important, because you do need catch-up cards that way. And I'm going to talk about, before we move on to the to 1-drops, I'm going to talk about what the opponent's class has to do with it, because this is one more thing where it's very big. It affects a lot of how you mulligan. And some people are keen on it, but a lot of people just don't even look at your opponent's class when they're doing the mulligans. They think like you start playing the class after they start putting cards down, and you start like anticipating what cards they should have. But it actually starts at the mulligan. And what I mean by that is, if you're against a priest or a paladin, you like, to the extent that your deck is capable of, you want to challenge them on the board immediately, because otherwise they're going to buff stuff and it's going to get out of hand, and then you're not going to be able to catch up. On the other hand, if you are playing against a rogue, for example, you're probably not going to have the board in the beginning anyway. So it's a lot less important that you tempo out 2-2-3. Rogues can snowball, but they're much more likely to be aggro control, which means they're more likely to want stuff on the board on your side for them to remove. Let's say it's turn 2. If they can backstab Defias, it's a lot better than if they just dagger up or like drop a raptor. But to backstab Defias, you have to give them something to backstab, right? Like on turn 4, they want to play a 2-drop and eviscerate, but you got to have something there for them to eviscerate. So it's not as important, and they'll flip it on you anyway if they have a good deck. So it's just going 2-2-3-4 against Rogue is, I think, one of the least important class is the least important class to do that against, and so that also matters.
Yeah, definitely. And you see this with, I mean, rogues, I think, are the sort of special case in that you actually want to slow yourself down a little bit to not play into their removal and sort of speed, which kind of helps the rogue out as well, right? Like,
yep.
You're not hitting their face, which is part of the reason that rogue is so powerful. And then you talked about paladins, and we can say the same thing for priests, right? You want to get on the board so you have options to remove their stuff so they don't have buffs.
Yep.
And
hunters as well.
Yeah, hunters as well. You want to be faster on the board because they are going to try to put pressure on you, and that's typically how they win. And if you're first on the board, you can dictate the trades. You can sacrifice your minions to protect your own health, and that prevents sort of like going to turn 6 and suddenly you have card advantage on them, but you're at 12 HP and they're at 28, and then things are getting a little bit dicey.
Yeah, the only reason I don't typically include Hunter and Warlock, which are also classes that you really want to get the board on them in the early going goes, is because they usually get the board through 1-drops. And you can't really prevent that as the second player. They're just going to get their 1-drop and play it, or they're not going to. And if they don't, and they go first, then they're not any faster than anyone else, and they can't snowball any harder than anyone else. But if they did, so they're requiring something that's not really class specific. It's just how they draft. And if you coin out a 2-drop, depending on which 2-drops you have, you could be playing right into their 1-drops, right? If they have a 2-1 and you're not a ping class and you only have 3 2s, it's not going to help you all that much. Maybe you are better off with Ascension later. So it takes a little more thinking there. It depends on what class you are too. Which brings me to the next point, which is that your deck, beyond just how it curves out, how it wins also matters, right? You can mulligan less aggressively if your entire deck is based on a late game mentality with a lot of taunts and a lot of removals. You don't have to mulligan very hard for it. You just kind of need to do stuff to make sure you're alive. And so doing stuff on turn 4 is kind of okay. On the other hand, if you're a very, very aggressive deck, first of all, if you're a very aggressive deck, the odds should really be in your favor. And so you should be doing this anyway, but you really do need to get the board early, right? To see the flip side of the coin. If you're a paladin that needs to snowball, if you're a priest that needs to get on the board, you want to get on the board. You want to take the chance that you're going to get on the board, because if you're playing a reactive game, you're going to lose at a higher percentage anyway. So even if your chances of like fully curving out in the first 4 turns is better suited by you keeping a 2 and a 4, maybe you throw that 4 back to try to go 2-2-3, because what you want to do is you want to definitely be on the board. and the percent chance that you lose of fully curving out is not as high as the percent chance that you're just going to lose the game anyway because you've gone too slow by going 2-4-4.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we do this when we play our arenas as well. Sometimes you want to look at you want to look towards your win condition, and you also want to be honest in your evaluation of the deck, right? If you have an aggressive deck, and this is more so with rogues and hunters, if you have an aggressive deck that focuses a lot on curve, but perhaps the value is a little bit low, and then if you're at like 7, 8, 9 plus wins, you might want to say like, hey, this we could keep this like this OK2 and this OK3 when we have the coin, but we really want to go faster and we really need better cards from this deck, right? Like just settling for a safe 2 and a safe 3 just isn't enough there. Let's toss everything, try to get that really good 1-drop, and try to follow it up with strong aggression, using a bar mana every single turn. On the flip side, we've all had those sort of really high value control mage decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with those, I'm like, yeah, I'll keep the removal, like small removal. I'll keep the mediocre 3, and it goes back to your philosophy. Just have stuff to play, right? Even if you fall behind, your flame callers will catch you up, your flame strikes will catch you up, and your taunts, like from Senjins to bog creepers, like that'll help you stabilize. Let's just be safe here. And you need to know exactly when to mulligan in either of these directions based upon deck construction and the quality of your deck.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's talk about the final thing about this topic that I think people don't consider it enough, but it actually makes a pretty huge difference, and it's called winning the game. You want to win the game, and sometimes your odds of winning the game vary dramatically on your mulligan, especially with the coin. And what makes this difference, in addition to all the stuff we were talking about before, is the 1-drop. If you have decks that have a decent number of 1-drops, saving the coin in order to go, because you can't coin out a 1-drop, right? Like, unless you have so many 1-drops that you want to coin out 1-drop to 1-drop, with the rogue and the bladed cultist and whatnot. But generally speaking, if you're not going to get 2 1-drops to coin out, if you're just going like 2, 2, 3, 4, that's fine and all, but it is even better if you can go 1, 2, 4, 4, or 1, 3, 3, 4. That wins games, flat out. Why? Because you've not only used your mana efficiently, but you've then come out and you've countered something that he has put out. You've done both. The good part about saving the coin is that you get to go 1 turn earlier, and that counters his earlier turn cards, and he generally has to go 2 to 1 into your minions. Coining out a 2 doesn't do that. Unless your opponent has played a 1-drop and you're coining out a 2-3, you're not going to eat anything. Your 2-drop that you have coined out has very little effectiveness. The 2-drop you're coining out is the equivalent of playing a 1-drop that can't be pinged, because it's not going to eat anything. So you can solve that entire problem by just playing a 1-drop. Now, the chances of having a 1-drop when you're of getting a 1-drop when you're going to hold 1 card is not very high. If you have 1 drop, right, you have and you're holding 1 card, let's say a 3 or a 4. What you have is 3 cards of a chance coming back from the mulligan, and then literally 1 draw. That's 4 cards, and that's 4 cards out of 26 cards. So it's very low. I didn't do the math on that one, but 4 cards out of 26 cards is 4 possible cards out of 26 cards is a very low number.
Very low number.
Very low number.
That's our answer. Yes.
Yep, very, very low number. So you shouldn't rely on that. But that very low number gets doubled, or more or less doubled. Actually, it gets more than doubled. Sorry, not more or less. It gets more than doubled if you have 2 cards. And then again, odds increase again if you have 3 1-drops. So at around 3 1-drops, you have about a 50% chance of having it happen. That's not bad, right? To like kind of win the game right there. To have a 50% chance to win the game right there in a way that 2 2 3 4 just can't do. So, like one of the reasons you try to do 2 2 3 4 is because if you do 2 4 4 or like 3 3 4, what you're actually doing is you're wasting the first mana, right? The same way player 1 wastes the first mana. So by coining out the 2-drop in the beginning, you kind of like steal an extra mana from your opponent compared to how it normally goes. So the coin effectively acts as 2 mana rather than just 1 mana. And so it offsets the fact that your 2-drop being coined out is not eating anything. It's not facing up against an opponent's 1-drop in order to take advantage of it. Whereas if you coin any other turn, you will, right? Your 4-drop eats your opponent's 3-drop. Your 3-drop eats your opponent's 2-drop. That's what the coin is used for. So this solves that problem by letting you play something on that turn while letting your coin still serve its function of eating the minion from your opponent's turn before. So that's super powerful. That's doubly powerful of an advantage is what you should get. So if you have 1-drops, and people, I think it's commonly known, right? Like that if you are an aggressive deck, you want to go first because you have 1-drops to play anyway, and then the extra mana just adds up and lets you snowball. And your opponent's extra card that they get for being player 2 doesn't really matter at all because you're trying to end the game before that. But it's also fine going second, especially if you're not like a super aggressive deck. You just happen to have a bunch of 1-drops for one reason or another. Like at 6 1-drops, at that point you are an aggressive deck. But at that point you have like a more than 75% chance to get that 1-drop, and it's a really big swing.
Yeah, it's really huge, and I really like the point that you made about sort of if you coin a 2, typically because like 1-drops are they're not expected, right? Like you playing 1-drop is basically a bonus, but if you if they drop a Spire Tank, you coin out a Yeti, you are guaranteed to have something to get value on, right? Like you're eating up that thing. But let's say you coin out a 2/3. A lot of times there isn't going to be that 2/1 or that 1/2 that you can just eat up. And if there is, sometimes it's like Oregon Infiltrator, right? So you can't basically get that. So like you said, if you have nothing to sort of pounce on and then take advantage of it, then really you're sort of lessening the value of your coin. I mean, you're capitalizing on a lot of the value because you're increasing your you're going from 1 mana to 2 mana, which is a huge swing, right? But you are sort of lowering the value at the same time because there's a lack of something that you can dominate that's already on the board.
Yes, exactly. Okay. One last question that I know if there was Twitch chat they would ask: when do you hold a Flame Strike?
All right, so this is something in which I would say maybe half a year ago I'd be like, never, just don't do it. Now,
whoa, your answer's not never anymore? My answer's still never.
No, it is not never.
Oh wow,
I know. I say if it's essential to your win condition and you only have 1 and the rest of your deck is like pretty good, right? A lot of things have to fall in line. But yes, I could definitely see keeping a Flame Strike. It's going to be that rare occurrence that you do it, but I can definitely see you keeping a Flame Strike if you are sort of missing, like if you only have that 1 Flame Strike, you already have some pretty good cards. Let's say you have the coin and you already have 2, 3, 4 in your hand, and then the last card is a Flame Strike. Do you keep the entire hand or do you toss back the Flame Strike? I'm keeping the Flame Strike.
Okay. I mean, that's true. Like if you already curve out, you can keep a card, but it's still a dead card for the first number of turns. I don't know.
It's a dead card, but what am I? The question, and I actually discussed this in a recent stream. I think it was like as early as Friday or something, where I did keep the Flame Strike in that exact same scenario. I was like 2, 3, 4 Flame Strike. I'm like, look, it's so important to our win condition. I'm pretty happy with the other cards.
You just have to cobble together something for turns 5 and 6.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I have the coin. That could even be, something that I consider on turn 6, right? It's probably not. But I have the coin, I have some flexibility. Realistically, looking back at my deck, I'm like, my deck is not very good. I probably need this Flame Strike to win, right? And what card am I going to be really happy getting back, other than this Flame Strike? And I'm looking, I'm like, not that many cards, other than maybe another 2 to coin out. But even then, my deck wasn't the kind in which I want to rush onto the board, right? So I was like, yeah, let's just keep this Flame Strike. It's like my only AoE. So you'll definitely see that. And with those high keeps, and especially talking about like 6+ keeps, usually it's going to be sort of a world beater spell like Flame Strike. It won't be like, I don't think it'll ever be like Boulderfist Ogre,
Right.
Yeah, it won't be Boulderfist Ogre.
It'll be like Dark Iron Skulker, Flame Strike, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You're gonna keep cards like
Excavated Evil.
Sure, Excavated Evil. That's fine. If you are a super control warlock as well, maybe you keep some, a Demon Wrath or a Hellfire. But we don't want you to think, oh, sometimes if I have a good curve, I'm gonna keep this big minion. Man, I don't want to say never, but it is basically never going to be that Boulderfist Ogre,
Right. Okay, so that's about the high quality cards that you keep, and the high quality cards you keep, they have to have initiative, because if you're keeping a card like that, you're just kind of assuming that you're going to lose the board, if not in the very beginning turns, because of the fact you have a dead card in your hand for so long. So it has to be a comeback card. Like, you don't keep Deathwing, is what I'm getting at, because it's 10 mana. But you definitely don't keep the other version of Deathwing, even if it was the best card ever. Like, Deathwing the Dragon Lord, that's a 10 mana 12/12. Let's say, for whatever reason, that it happens to be the best card ever, rather than just like an above average good card.
Okay, like, you saying it's the best card ever, it could have an effect. It's like, win the game as soon as it's like Battle Cry, win the game.
Okay, I just mean a card with no initiative. Win the game has the most initiative.
Sure. Okay. No initiative, so it could also be like
summon. It's like Ysera, right? That's what I'm thinking of. Like a card like Ysera, a card like Kel'Thuzad, like, they're really good, but they're not. They have no initiative, and so if you're saving a coin if you're keeping a Kel'Thuzad in your hand, I think that's a mistake.
That is fair.
And Kel'Thuzad's ranked higher than Flame Strike, and I think it's like only like 1 mana more. It's 8 mana, right?
Kel'Thuzad is 8 mana.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So, like, it seems like, it's a high enough value card that you would keep it. No.
I mean, it's a conditional card, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Flame Strike's a conditional card too, but it's a card with no initiative. That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
Okay. So that's it for Deep Fried Meta for Advanced Mulligans. Let's move on to question from the GOAT. What is the question from the GOAT?
Question from the GOAT is, what is the best card that you never really want to pick, that you never really want to see in your draft? So it has to be a pretty good card, right? But it's obviously one that you don't really want to see while you're drafting.
I really don't want to see. Okay, a good card that I don't like. I want to see good cards. Is that wrong?
That is probably not wrong. I think that is a fundamental principle that we back up.
I don't know that there's any card that I don't like to see. Like, maybe the really big RNG cards I'm kind of like iffy on. Like,
right.
Like Animal Companion's a great card, but it's like entirely RNG, and I don't really like it. Oh, this one. Sorry. I have it. Bane of Doom.
Bane of Doom.
That's my answer.
One of my contenders. Yes. It is fun, right? But it is definitely a card in which you want to watch out for. And I do agree. It has to be those RNG cards. Although I strongly disagree with Animal Companion, because it is controlled RNG at its finest, right?
What?
You look at your board, you look at
Okay, it's sort of controlled RNG. It's sort of controlled RNG.
You have exactly 3 outcomes. And typically, 2 of them are going to be pretty good, depending, right?
Yeah, but it's controlled RNG, but you also want it to operate as a drop, too, a lot of times. and
Right.
it like doesn't more than half the time.
Okay, think about it in this way. Like, the worst case scenario is like you have sort of empty board and you don't want the Leok, right?
Well, you don't want the hover either,
Well,
or
sometimes
like,
you don't want the hover, but then it just acts as a removal.
okay, but you have nothing to remove. That's the point, right?
Oh, okay, then you just go face and you're
You
really
just said
happy with
empty
it.
board.
Why-
What are
why
you removing?
Why are
His
you
face?
unhappy with a 4-2?
I'm not
that has
unhappy
charge?
with a 4-2 that deals 4 face damage as a hunter. I'm not unhappy with it. But you're drafting it as a super high value card. You know, you're drafting it above the Yetis, you're drafting it above the spider tanks, and you end up with like a 2-4 or a 4-2 essentially. Like that happens way more
that
often.
Deals 4 face
Okay,
damage on the
fine.
turn.
That
It
deals
comes
4
out.
face damage in the early game.
That's really
It's still, and like when you want something, it screws me over a lot, and I think it screws a lot of people over a lot. I do agree that later on it's an incredibly good card because it kind of does what you want it to do, almost. Because at that point, later on in the game, if you're a hunter and you're not dead yet, you probably are okay with either a Leok or a Huffer. And if you don't get a Leok or a Huffer, using 3 mana to get a 4/4 taunt is really not the worst thing in the world for you. But it's on that turn 3 that it is kind of like a very low value card if it doesn't trigger.
I think I can't agree with you for the Animal Companion.
All right,
But,
what's your card? What's your card?
For me, it's something like Grand Crusader, which we rank pretty highly, right?
Yeah.
The problem with Grand Crusader is like on turn 6, you know your 5/5 isn't going to survive, and the swing is really big, right? Pounding cards are really good, but there are some real stinkers there. Like basically half of the secrets, even more than half the secrets. Like, are you that happy with like a competitive spirit at that point of the game? Probably not.
Because they're just 1 mana. They're small cards. You want big cards.
Exactly. It's great if you grab that Outdoor Peacekeeper, or you grab that Tyrion or Eadric.
Yep.
But yeah, the Grand
Low
Crusader
chance.
is just, I mean, it's very anti-tempo. You know it's going to just get eaten up by whatever they put out there. So that card better be good, right? And a lot of times it is good, and sometimes it's game winning. But that's a card in which I take it, and I'm like, yeah, it's a card that I'm happy to have in my deck. But there's always sort of that feeling at the back of your head. It's like, oh, this could go so wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That makes sense. Okay, well, that's a question from the GOAT. It's brought to you by our Patreons. If you would like to support the podcast, please go visit patreon.com/grinninggoat. Thanks again to all of our patrons. Card Good Bad. We're going to end on Card Good Bad. There's no, we don't really do a class talk, but there's no arena coops when I'm on vacation. As I am, right now, I am actually, let me think. Yeah. No. Okay. No, not this one. The next one. Okay. I'll save it for the next podcast. We're recording. But yeah, at this time, I'm probably actually on a plane when you're listening to this. Okay. So Card Good Bad is where we tell you whether a card is good or bad. And more, we're not telling you that anymore because we're picking cards that are good in some cases and bad in some cases. And I think that's squarely where this card is going to fit. And this is Crazed Alchemist.
Crazed Alchemist. Basically, 2 mana, 2/2, and you get the stat swap. So it's like the spare part attached to a minion. Now, this is a card I think I've always been higher on than sort of the general public. I remember way back, many expansions ago, I thought this card was pretty decent, right? And I think at that time the general consensus was this card was pretty bad. But now I think everyone sort of has come to really appreciate what this card can do, which is sometimes not be a hindrance, and other times just sort of win you the game, right? If you look at its ability, sometimes the stat swapping essentially means deal 5 damage or deal 3 damage, or just allow you to do crazy things that shouldn't be possible with a dinky little 2 mana 2/2.
Yep.
And
Even at its basics, right? There's so many like 3/5s out there, or like 4/6s. Deal 2 damage is very likely, and even deal 1 damage. It's an Ironforge Rifleman for 1 less mana, right? It's a Cruel Taskmaster. Like it's
right,
good.
right. It does that. It can save your minions. It does things that are unexpected. And in today's sort of late game, value-oriented, sort of trade on the board game, I think Crazed Alchemist is even better because, like you said, Ironforge Rifleman, not a completely terrible card. Suddenly, it's like, what about a 2 mana deal 2 damage? Well, that's just like a SI7 agent, right? That's incredible. And then if you're able to deal more damage, like you swap their Gurubashi Berserker, then it's like, oh my gosh, 2 mana, deal 5 damage, and put down a 2/2 body. That's game winning right there.
Yeah, and it does. Like, look, you put a 7/7 on the board. What does your opponent want to do? They want to put out a 7/4 to kill your 7/7. This screws with them. What does your opponent do if you have a very wide board of a lot of little things? They want to put out a big taunt that has a lot of health and very little attack, so that it can take care of all your little things in a very efficient way. What do? You flip it, you trade 1 or at most 2 of your little things in, and then you keep going face, right? Like, its ability is very underhanded. It takes the smart things your opponents do and makes them dumber. And that's very powerful, especially if you're a good player and you're facing against more and more smart players. And I mean, the things I'm talking about aren't like the smartest things in the world, but you do see it happen more and more often where people, like, they either have planned into this counter or they're just very, like, it's very obvious to them that this is the way to counter something. So it's also a card that I think scales up in value. Not just the better player you are, but, well, they kind of work the same way, because the better player you are, the better opponents you're going to face on average.
Yep. So Crazed Alchemist, not bad.
Not bad. Okay. All right. Well, that's it from us today. We'll catch you again next week with another pre-recorded Lightforge, which will be focused on 1-drops and 3-drops in the OG meta. We talk some about 1-drops and 3-drops now, but this is less meta dependent, right? This talk was more like fundamentals of Hearthstone. We're going to go more into where the old god stands and where these cards stand. I guess we'll talk a little about 2-drops too. It's so hard to talk about anything in the early game without talking about 2-drops. It's so hard. Like, everything hinges on it. Okay. Anyway, that's it from us today. This is Ughbog.
This is Merps. See you guys.
See you next week.